what is your favorite chapter takeaway from your book?
Kristen, phenomenal question. I feel like we don't have kids yet or in the near future, but I feel like it's asking like which kid is your favorite?
Mm.
And parents say, "Oh, I don't have a favorite kid." I think they do. I think they do. I was like our nephew signed the guest book and he's like, "I know I'm your favorite nephew. You don't have to tell the other ones, but I know that I'm your favorite."
Yeah, at our wedding, that was the way he signed the guest book.
So I will say I love all the chapter takeaways. I love that each person I've talked to experiences them differently
Mm.
and that people go to different chapters at different times for whatever they're facing that day. Like I've had a few people that like, I really needed that perspective chapter, so I just went right to it. I really needed a gratitude chapter, so I just went to it. I really needed that self-doubt one, so I just went right to it. And that makes me so happy that people have found that like yes, I read the whole book, but I know where to go to
Mm.
in these moments because that's the goal. Here's the framework. Use it. Use it for you. Use
Yeah.
it for you to become who you were intended to be. One of my favorite takeaways is the chapter reflection on labels
Mm.
and reflecting on what labels have been placed on you. Which ones do you want to keep? Which ones do you want to throw away because they don't serve you anymore? And the reason I really like that one is because you're bringing your brain through the past into the present and thinking about the future,
Mm.
like all in this one practice. And it happens in like kind of the middle part of the book so that people have time to practice the other reflections and kind of work up to that. It's no different than a weight training program. Let's start with air squats. Let's add in goblet squats. Let's add in a barbell squat. Then let's add in Olympic lifting. So the book, the practices are meant to kind of be progressive in that way. And I think that middle point with labels really gets you reflecting on where do these labels come from and why did I accept them?
Mm-hmm.
Why did I think that that's the way I need to live my life?
Right.
Why am I letting this label from when I was 8 years old, from this arrogant person, dictate how I'm living my life when I'm 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 90?
Yeah.
I love it because it's incredible when people have that realization. Like, wow, I'm trying to impress this person that gave me this label that I haven't talked to in 40 years. Why am I doing that? What is it that I want to do? Who is it that I want to become? Like, what was that dream that I had? What was that identity that I once had that I let go because of the labels that were put on me? And it's so empowering to reflect on those labels and go, that's not me. You
Mm-hmm.
you were wrong. You were wrong. You were wrong. They serve me because maybe they fired you up. Maybe they lit a fire underneath in football, the tush push, but maybe they lit a fire underneath your butt that made you run that extra mile, that made you work a little bit harder. So these labels, they serve at certain parts in your life. But then when you get the self agency to realize that you don't need that label anymore, oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And then it sets it up for the second half of the book when we start reflecting into self doubt and gratitude and forgiveness and some of those
Mm-hmm.
more complex thinking. So I think that one, I'd have to go with
Yeah.
that one. What about you? Did you have one?
Well, you just said mine. Well, no, I think just to comment on labels before I share my favorite one. I remember I think when we were working together initially, when we had first met, you had challenged me to do this. And I think I had done it before a couple times but not in the same like framework, but I went back and I realized I hated crying. And why did I hate crying? I hated crying because it showed my sensitivity. Why did I think sensitivity was a bad thing? Well, because I was the youngest of six kids in a neighborhood. I grew up in a great neighborhood where there was like four kids in my house because my two older siblings weren't living there, but four kids in my house, nine next door, two across the street, and like five plus up the road, and we would all just play in the neighborhood. So great neighborhood, but I was on the younger end of that. And so I was often called a baby.
Yeah.
Not only was I the baby of the family, but I was often just like called a baby. So anytime I cried, that meant that I was a baby, and I associated like weakness with that and all this stuff. And I had to get to a point of realizing like crying is such a gift and sensitivity is such a gift, and I don't need to numb myself. But I went through middle school, high school, college, like young adult years of like hating crying because I thought it was this like weakness, but it's because I was told I was a baby as a kid,
Right.
but
Right.
that goes into my favorite chapter takeaway of the book. And I think that this is one of my favorite chapter takeaways because I'd already practiced it before even meeting you, because I was challenged by like someone else in my life, but I realized like, so chapter 20 is the gratitude chapter, and the chapter takeaway is to be grateful and everything. And so the gift of gratitude is unreal. So in this example that I shared about being called a baby, I had to become grateful for my siblings again and for my neighborhood. But what I love most about this chapter takeaway is not only is it about becoming grateful and being grateful, it's also about forgiving.
Mhm.
And so not only do I have to be grateful for my siblings now, I also have to forgive them for what they did. And I think that it's funny, but I look at other situations in my life and um, my friends' lives, and I have a friend who, when he was in high school, his mom passed away from cancer. So he grew super angry. He was mad at a lot of people and things, and mad at God for sure, and stuff. And it took him a few years, but he ended up getting to this place where not only did he, accept that his mom had passed, but he said, I'm grateful for my mom passing away,
Mhm.
because my mom passing away allowed me to forgive all these areas of my life and become closer to God. And if I didn't have my mom pass away, I wouldn't have been able to forgive. And so I'm actually grateful that this happened. And people listening who struggle with death or have some sort of suffering that just they like can't even grasp being grateful for it, like my friend, like that's the goal. That
Mhm.
is the goal for suffering, is that you can someday in your life look at it, you can forgive the things around it, and that you can be grateful for the suffering. Because if we allow the suffering to not weigh us down, but instead help form us into the better versions of ourselves, like that, you deserve to, like that situation, that suffering deserves to be forgiven, but also grateful, like having gratitude towards it. And I know it's not easy. I know that I'm sure I'll face difficulties in my future life that I'm not going to be grateful for right away by
Yeah.
any means. And maybe I'll be like, I'm grateful for it, but really in my heart I'm not. But
Mhm.
like, hopefully I can get to a point where I become grateful for it. But whenever, you're going back in your life looking at these different challenges, maybe you're reading the book, going through the framework, or you pick up the book again and you flip open to the gratitude chapter, like allow yourself to find a posture of gratitude and forgiveness for those circumstances. And so I love that chapter, and I love that it's towards the end of the book,
Mhm.
because it like makes, like as you're going through the book you get hungry and hungry for the next chapter takeaway. And that one's a hard one, being grateful for challenges, forgiving situations and people, forgiving yourself, like that is hard stuff, but it's simple. It's a simple thing, it's a simple concept, but it's still hard.
Yeah, so many important things in there. And first, I want to give a shout out to the younger siblings because I'm also the baby of
Yeah.
the family. We're both the babies of our respective families. And most of my friends growing up were the younger siblings. But I want to give a bigger shout out to the older siblings. Being the younger sibling is hard. And honestly, like crying is sometimes the only way that you get out of taking the beat downs from your older siblings. I actually had one friend that he learned that. And he also learned that if they're in a separate room from their parents, he could jump off the couch, smack the ground, and just go, oh, and then his older brother would get in trouble because they just assumed that his older brother was beating him up. So he learned that trick, and he'd buy himself a couple days of protection because he'd be grounded. But then on day 3, he was getting whooped again. But then his brother's grounded again, so he found this system to be able to be the aggravating little brother, take a whooping, but not take a bunch of whoopings through the week. So being the younger sibling is tough, and I think the tough part is like you always just want to be with your older siblings. Like they're so cool. They have like cool friends. They're doing cool things. Like you just want to be with them. Like you don't really even care to like talk or like have a conversation. Like you just want to be there with them. And I give a huge shout out to my brother because he always allowed that to happen. He always let me be part of it. And I took whoopings from him, from his friends. We grew up in the sock'em, or what do you call them, sock'em boppers? Like the big boxing gloves that blow up on your fist.
Yeah.
And the thought is that because it's air filled and your fists are in there, it doesn't hurt when you get punched. I got teed off on a few times from some of his friends, and it hurt. Like it'll knock you out and give you some bumps and bruises. But how important it was to have him and still have him in my life, because I was able to then excel in sports. I was able to have a lot of receiving yards. I was able to make some really hard tackles and get the Hammer Award. Basketball I played well in. And everyone was like, oh man, does your brother get jealous or envious? And no, like he helped make me. And when older siblings take that pride, it's so special. And now, like to this day, I have such an example for myself of continuing to fight, because you want to hang out with the cool kids. So you're willing to take the punches. You're willing to face the adversity. You're willing to take the suffering because it's for a greater purpose. And as a 10-year-old, that purpose is a lot different than your purpose as a 31, almost 32-year-old. But it's such a great lesson. And for the older sibling to take pride in that, of like, no, I'm taking you under my wing. I'm going to be tough on you, and I'm going to show you how to keep fighting. Like I remember playing basketball with my brother and him holding me down because it was full contact basketball. there was no dribbling. It was full contact. And my brother was just beating me up, and he was just laying on me and holding me down. And he just goes, do you want this to end? And I said, never. Like, keep coming at me. And I remember him just going, are you kidding me? Like, what am I creating here? But I never would have had that had he been soft on me. And not saying that like you need to like wrestle, but you need to push each other. And he pushed me. And then once I got to that next level, he checked in. In the heat of a moment of me trying to tackle him down the hill and throw the basketball at his face, he paused and said, do you want this to stop? And I said, no, I want this to keep going. I don't know why, and he's like, okay, fine, then we'll keep going. And it's built me into that mentality of like, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting. So I have the example of that from my brother, from my dad, from my mom, to you have to keep fighting. You have to keep making steps forward. When you don't feel like taking that step, you have to just take that one extra step, that one little step. So shout out to all the older siblings in the room, because they really do take on a like third parent role. You know, like you have your mom, dad, maybe step parents involved, but that older sibling is really, they know more. You know, you have more conversations, more challenging conversations in the most cases with your siblings than you would with your parents. Like you need advice, I'm going to my older brother. If I need some other advice, I'll go to my mom or dad. But it was really like those moments, and that's got to be hard because the older sibling doesn't really know.
Right.
Like they're going off of their experiences and what they know at that point, but it's difficult to have that responsibility. So I guess what I'm trying to say is shout out to the older siblings for making us cry.
Yeah. Anything else you want to comment?
Nope.
Nothing. Okay. I'm just laughing at all of our siblings. They'd be so encouraged.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of my sister listening, and she'd be like, "Yeah, I was the one that made you cry."
Yeah. Remember that headlock?
Yeah. Oh, what a joy older siblings can be. Well, Kristen, thank you for that great question. Listener, if you haven't listened to the book or if you haven't read the book yet, we recommend that you do. Obviously, we love the book. It's our heart and joy with what we're doing here at Hope Not Nope, but it's also just a gift to be able to spread it to more and more people and for them to take the chapter takeaways and, like you say, go back to them in times of need and in times of challenges.